This is today a clearing in the forest just outside the Polish town of Olsztynek, but in 1934 it was the location of what I believe to be the largest war memorial in the world. During World War I, Hohenstein, as Olsztynek was then called, was briefly captured by the invading Russians. The town was destroyed in the fighting as the Russians were pushed back to be wiped out in a pocket to the southeast of Hohenstein. You can find this location on Google Maps. I think calling it the Hindenburg Mausoleum is going a bit over the top, but it's true that the mausoleum was once here, and that is what I'm going to talk about today. What Google calls the Hindenburg Mausoleum was part of what was an enormous war memorial. War memorials do not come much bigger than the Tannenberg Memorial, which I believe when built was the largest such structure in the world, although it was quickly surpassed by others such as the enormous memorial at Redipulgia in Italy, which you can see on another video of mine. This is the Tannenberg Memorial today, or rather, what is left of it. However, it is not completely destroyed. One approaches via roads paved with the original stones. Part of the walls remain. There's a bridge, and most surprisingly of all, a stone lion which once decorated the memorial and later a Russian military base now guards the town hall in Olsztynek. Apparently, the Soviet commander found the lion and rescued it to adorn his base. When the Russians pulled out of Poland, the mayor got the lion for the town hall. One part of the Tannenberg Memorial has survived. This bridge, it's about a kilometre or so from the main part of the memorial, I would say, to my eye. And of course it does perform a useful function, a way of getting into this part here, which presumably was seen as being sufficient to keep it in existence at the time of the destruction of the rest of the memorial. And this comes up to the hotel, which is here, Zajazd, hotel restaurant. Tannenberg was a major German victory in the first weeks of World War I. Battles in that war were fought on German territory only in East Prussia and only during the first 5 or so weeks of the war. All the other battles were fought on foreign ground. This battle happened due to the speed at which the Russian army managed to mobilize, much quicker than the German General Staff thought possible, and thus was able to invade East Prussia. The battle had been fought largely by locals, and German troops had been stationed in East Prussia in 1914. Due to the large number of veterans, the disproportionate amount of army officers who came from the region, and the fact that the battle had been fought here, this was an ideal location for a memorial to the First World War, unlike in the United Kingdom and France, or for example, which chose their capitals as the locations for such memorials. Another valid point was that from the end of 1914, the area where the battle had been fought received a great deal of reconstruction grants to rebuild infrastructure which had been destroyed in the fighting. On the 31st of August 1924, the foundation stone of the Tannenberg Memorial was ceremonially laid in the presence of Hindenburg and Ludendorff, the victors of the battle that had happened there 10 years earlier to the day. A total of 60,000 people took part, many of them veterans of the battle. As Hindenburg hit the hammer, he repeated the words similar to those on the Tannenberg Memorial in Berlin from 1821. To honor the memory of the fallen, remind the living, and inspire future generations. There were 385 entries in the competition to design the memorial, the winner being the Berlin architects Walter and Johannes Krüger. Their plan, heavily borrowed from Stonehenge and the medieval octagonal Castel del Monte. The layout of the site was octagonal, with a 20-meter high rectangular tower made of red bricks rising in the middle of each of the 8 sections of the ring wall. We can still find remnants of these bricks today on the site. These towers, numbered counterclockwise from 1 to 8, had names that recollected the war. The first was the entrance tower, which pointed north. The second was to be the World War Tower, although, as we shall see, it later contained Hindenburg's coffin until the Hindenburg crypt was completed. The third, the East Prussia Tower. The fourth, the Flag Tower. The fifth, the Hindenburg Tower, which contained a 4-meter high Hindenburg statue, and later also the Hindenburg crypt. The sixth, the Soldier Tower, which also had a viewing platform. The seventh, the Consecration Tower, and the eighth was a General Tower. Large archways were built into those towers in order to be able to accommodate large crowds. Passed through them and met in the centre. Coloured granite was used for the 14 city stones which showed the coat of arms of the East Prussian cities damaged in the First World War. The monument was connected to Hohenstein via a 7.5 hectare park, and today we can still find remnants of the walls and paths. Indeed, it is this park which has remained intact to a certain extent. The central part of the memorial was the resting place for 20 unknown soldiers inside the monument, under a burial mound with a high cross. The objective of the monument was not only remembrance, but also to educate the youth in the spirit of Tannenberg. For this purpose, a sports field was created nearby. The monument was inaugurated on the 18th of September 1927. This must have been quite difficult for President Paul von Hindenburg, as he was no longer on speaking terms with Ludendorff. Hindenburg, however, did offer his reinterpretation of history. He said, "The accusation that Germany is to blame for this war is unanimously rejected by all Germans of all classes. It was not envy, hatred, or a desire to conquer that gave us arms. Rather, the war was the ultimate means of asserting ourselves against a world of enemies associated with us being the heaviest victim. With all our hearts we went out to defend the fatherland, and the German army wielded the sword with clean hands. Germany is always ready to prove this to impartial judges. Men of all party colours rest indiscriminately in the countless graves which are signs of German heroism. At that time they were united in love and loyalty to the common fatherland. Therefore inner strife should always shatter on this memorial. It is a place where everyone shakes hands, which inspires love for the fatherland and to which German honour is paramount." This, however, is a great exaggeration, or rather a complete myth. It's a reference to the War Guild clause in the Treaty of Versailles. It needs to be remembered that it was the Kaiser who gave the blank check to the Austrians to attack Serbia, thus igniting the war. And it was the Kaiser who invaded Luxembourg and Belgium, as well as declaring war on France. Therefore, I don't think that there's anything to complain about in the War Guild clause. On the 2nd of August 1934, Paul von Hindenburg died. He'd been President of Germany since 1925. He'd requested a simple service and that he be interred next to his wife who had died in 1921 in Hanover. Considering the political and symbolic implications, Hitler ignored his request. He decided upon something spectacular for the funeral on the 7th of August 1934. It began with the transportation of the deceased president in the dark of the night on a gun carriage from Hindenburg's East Prussian home Neudeck, today Ogrodzinets, some 60 kilometers distant. Following a torchlit route and escorted by infantry and cavalry, the cortege made its way to Hohenstein. Hindenburg was originally buried in the central part of the monument. On the 2nd of October 1935, the anniversary of Hindenburg's birthday, the president's bronze coffin was relocated to a new sombre chamber where he was joined by his wife Gertrude, who was moved from the family plot in Hanover. The new crypt, which was completed in the autumn of 1935, was located directly below the South Tower. To create an entrance to the crypt, Hindenburg and the 20 unknown German soldiers from the 1914 battle were temporarily disinterred, and the level of the central yard was lowered 240 centimeters with stone steps surrounding it on all sides. The unknown soldiers were reinterred in the side chapels. Designed by the Krüger brothers and carved by Paul Bronisch, the entrance to Hindenburg's crypt was dominated by two 4-meter-high sculptures of the Eternal Watch, which were carved out of more than 120 tons of Königsberg granite. The mausoleum had dramatic vaulted ceiling. The reinterment of Hindenburg was marked by much pomp and ceremony by the National Socialist administration, who declared that the upkeep of the memorial would, from then on, be carried out at government expense. The sarcophagus was draped in the German war flag for the ceremony at which Adolf Hitler performed the rededication. East Prussia was enjoying a bit of a revival at that time, and nationalistic spirit was running high. This revival was helped by government funding for the rebuilding for the damage of World War I. Indeed, Hohenstein had been completely destroyed in the fighting. From 1936 to 1939, a travelling exhibition about East Prussia, centred on the Tannenberg Battle and Memorial, toured Germany. The Bedecker tourist guide of 1936 described the Tannenberg Memorial thus: where President von Hindenburg rests beside his fallen comrades as a place of national pilgrimage. This in turn led to tourism, not only to the memorial and sites associated with the battle, but also to such things as the Oberland Canal and its incredibly engineered inclined planes, which carried barges uphill. Following the Vistula offensive of January 1945, the Red Army began to overrun East Prussia. Hitler ordered the monument to be blown up, as though German army engineers had nothing better to do with Soviet forces bearing down on them. On the 21st of January 1945, withdrawing German forces planted demolition charges inside the entrance tower and the tower previously housing von Hindenburg's coffin, causing both towers to collapse. On the 22nd of January 1945, the Germans demolished more of the construction with a further 30 tons of explosives. Just before the towers were blown up, Oskar von Hindenburg, the son of the Field Marshal, managed to rescue the coffins of his parents, and they were disinterred and transported west. First of all, they went to storage near Berlin, then to a salt mine near the village of Benterode in Thuringia, where they were kept with the remains of both Kaiser Wilhelm I and King Frederick II of Prussia, Frederick the Great. The 4 coffins were hastily marked to indicate their contents using red crayon and interred behind a 180 centimeter thick masonry wall in a deep recess of the 23-kilometer mine complex, 550 meters underground. The coffins were discovered by the US Army Ordnance Troops on the 27th of April 1945 and were moved to the basement of the heavily guarded Marburg Castle at Marburg an der Lahn, Germany. In August 1946, 20 months after being removed from the Tannenberg Memorial, Hindenburg and his wife were finally laid to rest by the American Army at St. Elizabeth's, the church of his Teutonic ancestors in Marburg, where they remain to today. Although the Tannenberg monument was partially destroyed, it could have been repaired, but the communist regime in Poland had other ideas. Poland, after World War II, was granted around half of East Prussia, including the area of Hohenstein, now renamed Olsztynek. Stone was allegedly used for the Soviet War Memorial Olsztyn, the Communist Party headquarters in Warsaw, and the monument to the ghetto uprising in Warsaw, although I think that this may be more fable than fact. Other than the stone still in the ground, parts of the walls and the bridge, one thing did survive, and that is the lion, which is today outside the town hall in Olsztynek. To find the Tannenberg Memorial, it's not particularly difficult. It's on Google Maps. Parking, well, that may be a bit of a problem. There's a bit of a parking in the forest before you get here. Leave it there. Or alternatively, somewhere alongside the main road. Alongside the main road, there's a number of places you can actually leave a vehicle. We've got 2 signs. First one's here, which tells you a little bit about it. In fact, I'll read to you what it says here. In the years 1925 to 27, in the vicinity of Olsztynek, the Germans built a monument memorializing the victorious battle over the Russian army under command of General Samsonov in August 1914. The battle has been called the Tannenberg Battle. Bodies of 20 unknown German soldiers killed in that battle were buried at the monument. The monument had a shape of an octagon and consisted of 8 towers connected with a brick wall. The monument was a symbol of heroism of German soldiers in the First World War. In 1934, the body of the Tannenberg battle leader, Paul von Hindenburg, was buried here. He later became the President of Germany. In Nazi times, Tannenberg Denkmal gained the highest rank of a nationwide monument and became a place of pilgrimages. After the war, it was completely dismantled. Only some foundations and the bodies of 20 unknown German soldiers remain until today.
Both of these signs I think are comparatively new. I suspect they were put up for the 100th anniversary of the outbreak of World War I in 2014. Before that, I imagine there was nothing here. Walking over to the far end here, underfoot I can feel quite a lot of stones, and furthermore you can see here the brickwork. That is the largest piece of the monument that I have so far seen. So this is at the far end, so you can see I walked in from there. At the time of its construction, I think, I might be wrong, but I think that this was the largest war memorial built. However, it was replaced in size by the Redipulgia monument in Italy to the First World War. I've done videos of that. I was there 4 years ago in 2016, and that is quite incredible structure. In fact, compared what this was to what that is even today, that is far greater on a far bigger scale. So that is something you can see, which I would recommend that you had a look at. Should you come here, one thing you want to have on is long trousers, even in the heat, because here it gets very hot in the summer. And one of the reasons I came here earlier was I thought I'm gonna have to wear long trousers, so therefore I don't want it to be roasting hot. Having said that, I forgot about the amount of dew that'd be at this time of the morning. But one thing that stands out to me, okay, this is a monument to those who were killed in the First World War. When it was built by those who largely served in the First World War, but then it served propaganda purposes for the Nazis, completely changing around the original meaning of the site. And then a war which was started by National Socialism, and this is the result. The land that this was built on was lost to the country which was the victim of Nazi aggression. The monument is now nothing but a few stones. This is what the National Socialists did for Germany. They just brought destruction and death. Here lie the remains of soldiers killed in the 1914-1918 war, also to remember them as well as the victims of all wars.
Whereas today we cannot see much of the Tannenberg Memorial other than what you've seen here in this video, we can visit sites such as the town of Olsztynek, and in particular we can see the magnificent Oberland Canal built in the middle of the 19th century. This area, or region I should say, is my favourite place to visit, and I try to be here every summer. Thank you for watching. If you found this interesting, you might wish to subscribe. I live in Poland and Germany, and therefore I'm able to do my own research. I upload every Friday at 2000 hours my time, Central European time. So if you're somewhere else, then it's going to be a slightly different time, but it's always a Friday at this time. Sometimes I upload on other days as well, and if you'd like to know when I'm uploading, I may be doing a live broadcast, then you can subscribe. But if you're interested in this type of history, I now suggest you have a look at my video on the people who financed Hitler's rise to power. Thanks for watching.